I used to think when I was new in the industry that it was my job to say yes and to please everyone. And it caused me a lot of unnecessary stress. And I'm at a point in my life now where it's like the work that I do is not for everyone. And I think that it's important for hairdressers to, to be broad and to kind of be open to a variety of different directions and outlets and things that you can do in the industry, but also at the same time to set boundaries for yourself too, because you really can't be, I feel like, as important or as efficient or as effective or as creative as you need to be for people if you've got stuff like eating away at you.
Hello and welcome to the Elevate podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Nowakowski. I'm a salon owner, educator, mindset, and leadership coach that helps salon owners go from overwhelmed and burnt out to motivated and empowered. It is my mission to help you systemize your business, generate more profit, and create a career that you love. Join us every week to learn about the small shifts you can make to elevate your business regarding mindset, marketing, social media, business systems, and so much more. Welcome to this week's episode of the Elevate podcast. This week, we are having a discussion with Christian about his unique path in the hair industry. I'm so excited to talk to Christian because I have been following him on social media for so long and think that he has such a unique path. And I love everything that he does with his education and, of course, his work as a hairstylist. Do you want to take a moment to introduce yourself and just kind of share who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Christian Gaytan. I go on Instagram by Christian Awesome, but my last name is Gaytan. And I'm a hairdresser and an educator. I've been in the business for about 18 years this year. And I'm very passionate about haircutting. That's really kind of how I got into education when I was a haircutting educator and worked for a couple of different brands before sort of branching out and moving kind of more in an independent route. But I teach really because I like hanging out with hairdressers, if I'm being honest with you. Like, I feel like you got to be a real special kind of person to do what we do day in and day out. So I'm in education really because I like hanging out with hairdressers. I like showing people the things that I learned and things that have kind of helped make haircutting easier for me in my career. But I do that really because I love it. I also work full time behind the chair. So I'm in the salon, 5 days a week. I think you know how it can get. Sometimes you're putting in, a couple more hours than you might have meant to, but that's what I do.
So the one thing that I love about you is I feel like you have such a unique path with working behind the chair and being an educator. I wanted to know, how did you get started with this journey? Because you work in a commission salon, correct? Or do you do rental?
Yes.
I can't remember. Commission salon.
Commission salon.
Yeah. That's what I thought. I love the fact that you do that because you've really kind of carved your own unique path. I feel like there's such a standard that people feel that they have to go through in order to feel or be successful in our industry. And that's either going to a salon suite or possibly opening a salon, when in reality, you can create so much freedom and your own unique path just by kind of going with and letting your passion guide you into your own personal, in your own personal path. So what was your deciding factor on how you actually created this? Because you're an independent educator, but you also work for brands. I've seen your face everywhere.
I do, yeah.
Right. So how did you actually create this path for yourself? What was the kind of guiding force that pushed you to move forward with what you do?
As far as education goes?
Yeah, education and behind the chair, because you do specialize in cutting, and I primarily see you doing that on social. So how did you choose that path as well?
Well, when I first I got into education really, really early. The school that I graduated from, they offered me a job the day that I graduated. And in that moment, I was super excited about that because, I didn't really know where I was going to work or what my future in the career was going to look like. So I was really stoked and I took it for two reasons. The first one is I was just really excited to have a job right out of beauty school. The second reason was that I'm from kind of a smaller area, about an hour south of the city. And I remember, in beauty school, just kind of thinking about the hair community in my area and thinking that the majority of the hairdressers where I'm from had been doing hair for forever. And I'm a new kid. And if I was going to be competitive in any type of way, then I needed to have an edge over some of the other hairdressers in the area. And so I was like, I'm going to get an education because that's going to be a really easy way for me to know what's new and what's going on in the industry. Kind of like have my ear to the ground in terms of, like what's trendy and like what's in, and so I did it for that reason too, was because I never wanted to be like the type of hairdresser where I felt like I knew everything. And I thought that being really close to education was a great way to do that.
I love that. What do you think are some of the qualities that you have to success in order to be a very successful hairstylist? Like, what are some of the things that you feel kind of catapulted you to your success?
I think that it's a couple of different things. The first one is like really having a great relationship with education. Like I said, I never really wanted to be the hairdresser that felt like I knew everything, and so I always will do a little bit of like a self-evaluation from time to time. I think self-awareness is a really good one, and I love that. I've never really been the type of hairdresser where I thought that my way was the best way, and so anytime I come in contact with a new hairdresser or a new educator or someone new starts at the salon, I take a look at how they work and I watch them, whether they know that I'm doing it or not, because I'm trying to take inventory of the systems or the techniques or the way that they look at things, and then decide for myself, like, if that is more efficient or better or faster or it gets the job done, right? Then I'll stop the way I'm doing it immediately and adopt that new way. And so I really think that it's just like being self-aware enough to know when there's something out there that you see or that you learn that could make you better or stronger or more efficient or whatever word you want to use. So that's kind of what I would say.
Oh my God, I think that's so powerful. I like work with my students all the time on self-awareness because it's the best way to really kind of grow your emotional intelligence skills. And I think that's so
Yeah.
important when you're an educator or any sort of leader. And I think educators are leaders. And I think a lot of people in our industry get so stuck in ego because they think that their way is the best way. And they're not open and willing to try things that can really help them grow and flourish in everything that they do, right? So I love that answer so much. Self-awareness is so powerful, and it's something that every single human should really kind of work on because it's one of the things that will catapult you into a more conscious way of living. So I love that. When you're mentoring and coaching hairstylists, like what's your approach besides self-awareness? Like I feel like to be a great educator, like you are dealing with these people who are kind of closed off sometimes. You have people who are so willing to learn. Then you have other people who are just kind of like taking the class to take the class and can be a little more reserved. So what's your coaching approach when dealing with different types of, learners and students inside of your classes?
Yeah, I love this actually because I've got a really flexible coaching approach. When the very first job that I got out of beauty school or was at a beauty school, and I was working in and throughout beauty schools for probably the first 8 years of my career. And when you're working in a beauty school, like you're working with people who've never done hair before, like they have no concept of how it works outside of whatever they studied beforehand. And so it's not as simple as like, let me show you how to do this and then you do that. Like you're working with various different levels of understanding and comprehension. And so I learned that some people learn best when they're nurtured, and some people learn best when you're like, a bulldog, and you really gotta give them some, you know what I mean, like some structure. And some people, they like more of a friend, and some people they like more of, a mentor, like a leader. And so I learned kind of all of those different ways of working with people. And so, fast forward 18 years later, now that I'm, working with brands and I'm working more independent, I try to get a feel for the person that I'm talking to and what they might benefit from the most. And so I think that for me, like what's really been helpful is kind of like adopting a very like varied way of kind of like talking to people and coaching people, because it's more important to me than anything that you leave with something out of my class. And if I'm teaching just one broad way of doing it, I'm going to turn a lot of different people away. Like I know that you and I have both taken classes before where maybe the person was like a little too chill, too relaxed, and you're like, structure. Or maybe you took a class and someone was like, this is the way that you got to do it, and it's the only way you got to do it because it's the right way, and that turns a lot of people off too. So I think that being able to meet people where they're at is really the best way to coach people.
Yeah, I think that that way is very Vidal Sassoon. I took so many Vidal
Yeah,
Sassoon classes, and it was like I went
yeah,
there and I was like, oh my gosh, this is intense, very intense. I also kind of wanted to touch base on the importance of education inside of our industry because I think a lot of people don't really think it's important. And I mean, for myself, I can't even tell you how many hair classes I've taken over the course of my 20 years of doing hair. And every single one has definitely shifted and catapulted me into, more success and definitely shifted my perception on doing hair or the client experience. And I feel like sometimes people get stuck in a little bubble. So, what can you say about the importance of education in our industry, especially? I feel like there's a variety of different things now. I mean, we've got
yeah.
social media, YouTube, like those things didn't exist when we started. So, what's the importance of, let's say, like hands on classes and going in person and really kind of experience it in that way?
Did you ever wish there was a space to connect with other like-minded entrepreneurs outside of the industry? Last year, I joined Brand Builders Group, and it has truly transformed my business. Brand Builders Group is a personal brand strategy firm for influencers, thought leaders, and entrepreneurs. Their services are designed to help mission-driven messengers clarify positioning, expand reach, and increase revenues. I've gained so much clarity thanks to working with my brand strategist and attending Brand Builders Group events. If you are ready to create an impactful personal brand, check out Brand Builders Group. For more information, check out the link in the show notes.
As far as like the importance of hands-on classes, I think stuff like that is really important because there are learners, I do believe, like I think that I'm one of them, where I can see something and be able to reverse engineer it, figure out how it works, and then be able to do that, right? But not everybody is a really visual learner. Some people really need to kind of like apply their hands to it and like get their hands in it and wrap their mind around it and have like a feedback like from another person to kind of like, hey, maybe you should stand this way or do it that way. So hands-on education, I think, is always going to have a place in the education world. And in terms of the importance of education, I think that the way that I always tried to look at it was like, I think that I'm a really skilled hair cutter. All right. I know that there's a lot more that I could learn, but I think I'm very good at what I do. If today I decided that there's no more left for me to learn, like I'm just gonna rock it with what I know moving forward, that will probably carry me another 5, maybe 10 years. But like in 20 or 30 years, when the trends have changed and the language that people use is different, and the things that people are asking for is different, like what I know today is not going to be able to carry me, in another 20 or 30 years. And I know that you and I both have seen that happen so many, so many, so many times where you meet a hairdresser that's really dug into the way that they do things and the industry moves on without them. It leaves them behind. And I just don't want that to happen to me. So
Yeah, I see that all the time where it's like you can see the stylists who evolve with the times and the ones who kind of just stay the same. It's very clear and evident
yeah.
when you're in a salon. Yeah. So how do you balance the demands of being an educator and running a successful business behind the chair? This is
This
a
is a great
lot.
question. It is, and I've only learned how to do it like recently.
And you're a dad and a husband, so you
Yeah,
have all the things
yeah.
going on.
Yes, I got to tell you, if I'm being honest with you, I have never been a really organized person. I've only started using a calendar the last like 3 years, but I can say that that's helped me tremendously because, like you just get into a point where you're like, you double book yourself or you triple book yourself with things. And then, you got to like, oh man, maybe I shouldn't have booked myself so heavy. And like now I'm really stressed out or like now I got to cancel on something. And so I think that I really had to, I as a non-structured person, I really had to become more structured. And so for me, it's things like using a calendar. Like I've got a color-coded calendar that I use so that I know what stuff in my calendar is personal stuff, what stuff is salon stuff, what stuff is education stuff, what stuff is like independent education stuff, because I'm split a lot of different ways. And then I also have to try to make sure that I've got, time to be, for myself to kind of grow personally. And so I think that it really just kind of like slowing things down and being able to see it visually for me has been really helpful.
Speaking of growth, how do you stay motivated and continue to grow yourself as a hairstylist and an educator?
Oh, you know what? This is a great question. I I've always been kind of like a collector of hobbies. I've always been a creative person. Before I did hair, I used to play in a band. That was how I got into hair before I played in a band. I was studying fine arts at the American Academy of Art, and I did that like all through since I was like 8 years old, was drawing. And so I like working with my hands. I like creating things, like making stuff. And so I would say that I'm surrounding myself with as many creative outlets as possible. So I love hair and I do a lot of hair, but whenever I'm not doing hair, like I'm not thinking about that. Like I'm thinking about, what new band I'm into, or I'm thinking about, what art I want to put on my wall, or what museum's got what exhibit. I like learning about what other people do. I feel like there are so many different like really creative things going on and happening in the world that you can take bits and pieces of those things and then figure out a way to sort of like, I don't know, not necessarily use them and apply them in your work, but use how they make you feel in your work, if that makes sense at all. Um, so I would say like just having a creative outlets outside of doing hair has really been helpful.
I like that. I know I like to do the same, art, music, all those things really inspire me as
Yeah.
well. I think for a lot of newer stylists, anyways, inside of my salon, I feel like a lot of them struggle with like conflict resolution and dealing with difficult clients. What
Hmm.
is your advice, since you've been in the industry for 18 years and you have such a strong following with your education and with your clientele? What advice do you give to new stylists to help them diffuse tense situations with clients? Because I feel like a lot of times what happens is people don't learn those skills and they end up leaving the industry early because it can sometimes be a little rough.
Yeah, this is a great question too. I think the first thing is just to like not to take anything like that personally. Sometimes I feel like people are having a bad day, or they've got something else, other stresses in their life that are kind of like driving, you know what I mean? Like that conflict or like that energy towards you. And I know that that's such a hard one to apply. It's been a hard one for me, but I got to a point, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, where I was like, you know what, if people don't like the stuff that I do or the work that I do, like it's not personal. You know what I mean? Like there's always a way where I can go back and I can fix it or adjust it. And so if it's an issue with like someone being unhappy about the work, like it's not personal in most cases. In many cases, it's not personal. So that's been really helpful for me. If it's like an issue in like just a person having like a bad attitude or an energy towards you, and it's not like work related, I think that it's just really important to set boundaries, because this one was another lesson that I had to learn, kind of like the hard way too. But um, I think that I used to think when I was new in the industry that it was my job to say yes and to please everyone. And it caused me a lot of unnecessary stress. And I'm at a point in my life now where it's like the work that I do is not for everyone. And I think that it's important for hairdressers to be broad and to kind of be open to a variety of different directions and outlets and things that you can do in the industry, but also at the same time to set boundaries for yourself too, because you really can't be, I feel like, as important or as efficient or as effective or as creative as you need to be for people if you've got stuff like eating away at you. You know what I mean? And so I would say like setting boundaries for sure.
Yeah, boundaries are a definite must. I also like to share with my team members that like usually if somebody is giving off a negative energy or they aren't being polite, it's just usually a projection of where they are in their life and their own personal struggles. It really has nothing to do with you. It's always all about that person. But I think it takes a lot of work on your mindset and understanding of different things like ego and things like that to understand that concept. But I love your answer so much.
Thank
Okay,
you.
on to the next question. So, what advice do you give to somebody who is just starting out in the industry and who kind of wants to carve their own unique path, kind of like how you have as an educator and as a commission stylist?
I think that probably two different things. I think the first one is I know that this is like redundant because everybody talks about it, but like you've got to set goals for yourself, because you won't know what direction to work towards if you don't have like a direction in the first place. And so, like setting some goals for yourself, you know, no matter how big or how small, so that you have something to work towards is really important. The second one is if it's possible, to find someone who's already done all of that work ahead of time, like a mentor or a coach or somebody who's already done and laid the groundwork for you. Just so that like it just makes it a lot easier. You won't have to go through making all of the mistakes sometimes that can be made if somebody has already laid that framework for you. And so in my career, in my education, I've set a lot of goals, but I've also buddied up to a lot of people that have done that stuff first, because I can take so much information and so much influence from them and then apply it to like my situation and then be able to get to that kind of point, be a lot faster. So goals and mentors.
I love that answer too. I agree with all of that. So what upcoming projects do you have, or like some exciting events or classes do you have in the near future?
You know what? I've got a lot of classes for this year. I've got my calendar is pretty full of education. There's always room for more independent stuff. That's something that I'm working towards a lot more in the next couple of years. I do got a big plan, hopefully that I'll be able to launch this year. There's a lot of moving parts, and I've got to like make sure I carve the time out for it that I need to. But I really want to get into streaming education, like filming like hair videos. I've done that for a long time. I actually won a Hairbrained Video Award like the second year that Hairbrained did video awards, and I was so stoked to have like such a huge influence in the industry recognize kind of that work that I was doing. And I've always liked music videos, and so when streaming education kind of came around, I was like, I need to get on that. I know I'm late to the party, but I think I've got a lot to offer, and so I've been building up a little bit over time, um, just kind of like filming and shooting haircuts and doing voiceovers. I just have to edit it all and put together and figure out what platform I want to host that stuff on. But like definitely this year, I want to get that started.
Okay, one more question, because it's what popped into my brain when you're talking about filming, which that really excites me because I love your social media. Can you
Thank
please
you.
talk about the importance of social media on your career? Because so many new stylists are so hesitant to put themselves out there to really focus and make social media a priority, when I feel like it's so important to really building. What is your opinion on that?
I've got a huge opinion on that. In fact, I just taught a class for the salons that I work for on Monday on social media and like different strategies and different things that I do to help put people in my chair. I think it's a huge one. I mean, when I first started doing hair, I remember I would print out like, flyers and I would go and stick them on the windshield wipers of cars, like at the mall or like shows that I was playing. And I remember like handing out business cards to people and like walking around and like introducing myself to strangers. Like all that stuff is great. And technically you still could do those things, but you know how many people you can reach like on Instagram or like on TikTok or Facebook or whatever? Social media is like, it's really leveled the playing field. I mean, there are hairdressers in small towns all across the country that have larger client bases and are more in demand than some people that I know that work in large cities. And so I think that right there kind of speaks for itself. But as far as like the importance of it, I think that all you got to do really is just set a strategy. It doesn't really matter how big or how small. Find a couple of days a week that you can put something out. Make sure that you're putting out stuff that is the type of work that you want to do and the type of work that you want to be known for. I think that it's great and it's important if you share a lot of personal stuff, because people kind of want to see like who are you and are you the type of person that I want to do business with. And I feel like it's so easy and it's free. Like I don't understand. I feel like you, like I don't really understand sometimes like why people don't really jump on it. I think that sometimes it does come from like a vulnerable place of like I don't really want to like put myself out there, like a fear of rejection. But all that stuff is really just in our heads. And I think some of it comes from the comparison between ourselves as hairdressers and the type of hairdressers that we follow. So oftentimes like I'll coach newer stylists that I'm working with and like people that I'll do coaching for like social media stuff is this is really extreme, but unfollow every single hairdresser that you currently follow, because all that does is it creates an echo chamber and like this situation where we compare ourselves to other people's work. Or if like you're worried about the people that you follow getting all up in their feelings, then just mute them and do it for like a month just so you can clear your head and see that like no one's really paying attention to you in the way that you think that they're paying attention to you. And I feel like that really frees you to be able to use it as like a really great tool to put people in your chair.
Yeah, I literally like a couple weeks ago went through and unfollowed like 2,000 people Because I'm this is no good for me. Like it was literally causing me stress and anxiety, and it wasn't good for my mental health. So I think I have like 800 people. Instagram will only let you unfollow like so many people a day. So like once you hit that limit, they won't let you do it anymore. So it's like a process over a few weeks. But it definitely has helped me so much. And I just have things in my feed that like make me happy. And it's been a game changer. So I love that. I love that advice too. Okay. So how can people find you and how can people book a class with you?
Instagram is really the easiest place to find me. Like I'm on a couple of different platforms, but that's the one that I'm most active on. My handle is awesome. It's like all one word, links. And you could book a class from there too. I've got a link in my bio where if you wanted to get a cut by me in Chicago or looking for models for haircutting videos, or if you want to take a class, that's really kind of the best way to reach me is through that.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for
Yeah,
sharing
thanks for having
all
me.
of your knowledge and just like having great conversation. And I appreciate you.
Thank you.